Alright, so this is the first drive on the new software release that came out today, 2024.2.2.1. Just want to activate home link there to shut the garage door. And so in the release notes, it just says bug fixes. In the US, we know this fixes another recall, which is really just the size of the icons when you turn on the car. Apparently it's not an issue with the ADRs in Australia, so it's not something we get here. To be honest, it wasn't really an issue. They turn on when there's an issue, but for the most part you see them when the car first starts up. So what generally happens with the new software release is you see just bug fixes in the release notes, but what I've noticed over the years of getting these software updates is that there's some undocumented changes, usually in the autopilot space. So that just is pretty subtle, and for most people maybe they don't even notice, but for somebody who's paying attention and drives it every day, it's things like how well it resolves when the white lines break up, for example. When the road increases in width, what happens with the car? Does it center it? Does it center itself based on the available space? Does it hang to the left like a normal driver would? We're going to test a couple of those things on this drive. So for a few versions now, we've had the single pull to engage autopilot. Really handy. I've come to love it. The settings in the options menu if you want to change that. But this road down here is quite a good one. So I'll just disengage to go around the corner. Obviously we don't have FSD Beta that would take this corner itself, but so we head down here, and this is a good example of a road where we'll engage autopilot, and it's got pretty good markings for a certain period of time, but after you get down to the road a little bit, those markings go away. There's a dip where the waterway is, and we'll see how it responds. The other nuances that I'm talking about in these different changes are, how does it slow ahead of a speed bump, for example, or does it recognize the digital speed signs, and those kind of things you might not find in a release note. And here's an example of the road is now unmarked. Autopilot was engaged before when there was markings, and you can see that it's hanging to the left, which is great. Previous versions it would have gone to the center. Now it hasn't slowed at all for that, which I might have done marginally, a couple of Ks off, but generally we're fine. And then up here, we're still hanging to the left, which is great. Exactly what I would do as a driver. And there's a corner you can proceed through, but really a corner to the right when the markings start picking up as well. So it might brake and slow us down, or I might have to intervene. And I was not seeing it slow down. So I'll keep testing a corner like that between software versions and see if there's any changes. It is kind of cool to experiment and see what's going on. What I tend to notice too is that these builds, now that their underlying code base is the same as what FSD Beta versions are built on, is that some of those parts of Beta start to flow through a little bit into our Australian builds. What I mean by that is there's some corners that I can take that the car will turn. Effectively, it's very similar to like an arc like this. It's just an increased angle really when you get to a corner and you've got to take a right turn or a left turn. It's whether the car sort of identifies that as a right angle corner, something it can't take without Beta, versus something that it can. And sometimes there's a fine line between those two, and it will let you continue. You might have seen a previous video where I did the taking a roundabout situation where it did the full left-right combo to get through the roundabout. And because I do have FSD, it does the awesome. Because I do have FSD, it does the traffic intersection and traffic light awareness, so it will pull you up to a stop, which is something I really appreciate. Now pay attention, take over kind of instruction there. We do see that from time to time. I was sort of talking to the video and not paying particular attention. at the window, so maybe it was complaining from the interior camera here. This is all pretty straightforward, this road. I wouldn't expect any problems here. Well marked and 80 Ks. Some of the tests we'll do is around lane merging. So that's where 2 lanes merge to 1, or the other way around when 1 merges to 2. And you can just sort of see the car behave differently between those. There's a place that I won't go to today, but where you're driving along like this and it separates into 2 lanes to open up to a turning lane. And it's decisions like that where you as a driver, you've either got a choice of driving straight through the dotted line, so you're more than entitled to legally in terms of road rules. You can certainly proceed through that turning lane where it doesn't have a sort of a hard line that only cars turning right would need to go in there. Or your other option is to go to the left. Now, obviously, if there's a car is turning ahead of you, obvious choice is to go around so you don't have to slow down. But it's those kind of things where you sort of wonder and explore and see what happens. How does the car decide which of those 2 decisions to make? And then obviously comparing that behavior over a number of software versions, you can start to see a trend there. Hopefully a trend that is improving. So we still got proceed on green. That's been in the software for a number of years now, and so it obviously does the traffic light recognition. It will pull you up to a stop if it's red, but even if it's green. And so I would have hoped that by now, with enough data around when it's safe to proceed, they see me almost on a daily basis proceeding through when the intersection is clear and you've got the green light. And really the model should be picking up that, hey, there's no cars turning in front of you, that it's safe to proceed, and that need to store confirm to proceed or with a pedal, that should really go away, and it's been well overdue. I suspect we could be waiting until we get FSD Beta version 12. It's got to get out to more people in the States and then to people internationally, hopefully. So roundabout is one of a series of roundabouts to take normally. Dual lane roundabout, it pulls it to a stop, a little touch on the accelerator, and didn't want to proceed. Some days we have better success with that than others, and the different angles going into and out of the roundabout can play a big role with that. This auto lane changing works pretty great. There are some instances for the different lane changes where you commence it, so it's available to you, that it sees the second lane and then you start the merge, and mid-merge it loses context or it can't see the second lane and it will abort the change and you need to take over. So it's those kind of things as well that are like really subtle. They're not in your face, but when you're driving every day, you can kind of appreciate the difference there. Now I kind of stopped, and let's go there. Awesome. Let's actually go straight through here to get to the corner I want. So I do question that sometimes when it's like pulling you up at a roundabout, if it's really doing a valid check of all the traffic that is about to come your way. And like that was a good example where I didn't feel like it was going to fully stop. Maybe it would, but I'm not prepared to take that risk. So yeah, just intervene. That's what we're meant to be doing. And I probably can't re-engage that. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go around here, and then it's this inverse corner back the other way. That is the one that it regularly will take for us, and we'll try and capture that on video. I'm not sure how impactful it is to have a route set in. If this thing would work on either, with the route destination plugged in or not. This is now slowing us as a result of that route because it wants me to do a U-turn here, which I can certainly do. It's definitely not going to do that for me, so I disengage. But yes, I've noticed that behavior as well. It will slow down to allow you to take the turns on a route. And if you have the wrong route plugged in, that will start to feel a little weird for you. But generally I use routing a lot, not only for sort of traffic information, but just for that purpose specifically of the car accommodating the turns and slowing for them. So no auto blinker yet, which is a shame. I would hope that they add that too, where it will just auto indicate based on the route that you're doing. And we're just going to accelerate through. And yeah, it didn't succeed that time in the corner. But I've had really good success, maybe 60% of the time it will continue around that corner without issue. Very often you have to give it a slight tap of the accelerator to give it confirmation you're allowing it to proceed through the intersection. And yeah, you can see that it's still definitely not doing double lane roundabouts, which is something we want beta for. Let's just try this out to the left here, and I'll end my route. And I assume that's going to be So yeah, the purpose of today's drive is just really to give you a sense of the current state of FSD, especially with this new build coming out today. It seems like it's going wide release, quite a few people reporting they're getting it on their vehicles today. Is this kind of road well marked that, you know, I really enjoy having autopilot, and the knowledge that you're going to really stay in the lines and adapt to the traffic ahead of you, just so you can afford to look around a little bit more than you otherwise would. And it's one of the joys of having autopilot, that you get to see a bit more of the world. Whereas normally when you're driving and you have to focus 100% on the road and the environment and the objects around you, that you sort of have this tunnel vision for what you're focused on. But autopilot's magic for that. And the other aspect to it is, if this is a longer drive, multiple hours, you'll get out at the end of that drive and you'll be still quite fresh, versus having expended a lot of mental energy just on these basic tasks of staying in the lane and adapting to the vehicles and what they do around you. So one lane split to two, this is a good example of what I was talking about earlier. Got a decision to make. It's now decided to go to the right lane. I would have liked to see that prioritise right and not even try and centre. We'll just tap to try and get through the roundabout, and we're going close to that. Yeah, and it gave up. So it kind of is close to understanding what it needs to do there, but obviously didn't land on where we needed to do the sequence of left-right corners there. Now, one thing I'll test is this freeway on-ramp. It's been a little bit of a pain point of mine over the years. And different freeway on-ramps are behaving very differently in my experience. What I'm talking about is, when you're on the on-ramp, in Australia, you are merging to the right to join the traffic. And for the very longest time, basically since Navigator and Autopilot was around, that it indicates to the left up here for some reason. Now, other freeway entries, it gets it really well. I would say off ramps are questionable. And when it lands it's like a really magic experience. But it is a little hit and miss too. So again, lane division, left to right, no route plugged in, but it did happen to choose where I wanted, and it's picked the right lane pretty efficiently that time. So again, this might be one where I really should have had a route plugged in. It's slowing to the roundabout. I'll give it a bit of encouragement. And it's really pulled me up there and just given up. So this was the corner that I had success on, but as I said, I used to have the route plugged in. So yeah, navigate to Albury. Okay, left indicator still happening. Annoying and confusing for the cars around me. So I'll turn that off, and we're at 83 merging to 110. Car next to me's moved over, which is great. It's going to do the auto lane change. I'd like a little bit more gas. We're at 90. Car going around me. Smooth transition, that was good. Still wants to get over because of the car ahead of me. All right, let's do it. Oh, okay, someone just... So that was a bit of rubbish, a can or something that was beside the road. The airflow from the car ahead of me disrupted it. blew it back into our path, went out of the car, not a problem. Suggested lane change, I do have confirmation on because it has been a little schizophrenic in its selection of lanes at times. On longer trips, I've found it really good, but just in traffic around town on a freeway like this between Wodonga and Albury, it just wants to take lane changes it doesn't need to do, and I'm not quite sure why and how or when that's going to get fixed, but yeah. So let's just take a quick exit here. I'm going to indicate that's a super smooth transition out. Yeah, beautiful. And so we're going to pull up to a stop for these traffic lights, although they're green at the moment. It wouldn't surprise me if they're red by the time we get there. Slowing for the cars ahead, still green. So stopping for traffic control, and then here we get the reds. So without doing anything, that's taken me off the freeway, and then it's pulled me up to a stop, although I want to nose over here. So that's one thing I'd like to see too, is a bit more of a respect for the route, and it should know from the cameras around it that there's available space to point the nose in the right direction of where you're going. As I said, auto indicator is just something that will be super smooth, make life a lot easier. I do like that van model next to us. Fairly accurate, fairly detailed. Not sure that I've seen a van represented like that before. That could be a tweak in this version. Very cool. It's exactly that, like car models and things like that. You're never going to find that inside a release notes. It's literally you just find it by experimenting, which is half the fun, is sort of the enjoyment that I get out of testing the software, using it daily, trying it through different software updates. I'm just going to spin around here and jump back on the freeway. Big Chevy Ute. So put on autopilot, I just let it. So that was funny. So I let it pull me up to the stop, and then right at that instance, the light changed and I didn't notice the light changed. So we started moving forward. I thought it was a mistake and intervened, but actually the car knew what it was doing. So let's throw the blinker on. Let's have this freeway entry. One of the funnest things in owning a Model 3 Performance is freeway on-ramps. It's one of the few times that you're able to experience the performance on the road without worrying about getting a speeding ticket. So many cars can speed. In a very slow 1.3 litre petrol engine, you could probably go more than 110 k's an hour. But it's about how you get there, really, is the fun piece. And there's not too many cars on the road that will keep up to this thing. So, getting some beans, we're back onto the freeway. And if you look in the rear vision mirror, those cars that were next to us are no longer next to us. All right, on-ramp transition, there's a van just ahead of us. Blinker should go on now. No blinker? All right, confirmation might have been needed for that. I thought at the end of an on-ramp, it auto-indicated before, but I could be wrong. I'll do a bit more testing. I'll go back to the other setting where it's auto lane change and see if that does it automatically. Not terrible, but I am really impressed with that high risk maneuver there, where you're merging into vehicles that are potentially moving a lot faster than you. And I've always seen it react pretty well. So it clearly detects the cars coming up from behind you and will either accelerate you up to speed to slot in nicely, or brake to let them pass. Always in the back of my mind, there's just this random chance where you've just got car after car after car beside you that they haven't accommodated you merging in, and that the car would almost need to stop to allow that. I've never actually experienced that, but I am ready for it, I guess. So I'm just going to navigate this way. Any auto indicator? No. So we're going to disengage and jump over there. Cool. So 70 speed zone, even though the max speed, or it's detected the speed zone, is 110. It's interesting. It is slowing me a little bit. I don't feel I need to be at 60, 65 to get this corner, so just slight push on the accelerator, accelerate over to do the merge, or indicate over to do the merge. Now we're cruising at 80. So one thing that I do want to test is something that's frustrated me, is when you set cruise control, it does an awesome job. Like, this is one of the best features of having the car, is it recognizes the speed signs and then will take your speed immediately up to that speed, which is great. So you're always doing the exact speed of that speed zone. Perfect. Problem is, if you go up to the next speed zone, so if we were to go from 80 to 100, it would accelerate. It wouldn't accelerate up, is my point. So you would need to increase the set speed, and you can do that by pressing, pulling and holding down on the right stalk to basically say, hey, go and detect the new speed zone. So it might have seen the 100 speed sign, but it wouldn't bring your cruise speed up to 100, which is annoying, so that you have to, manually intervene there. In the opposite context, if you're from an 80 speed zone, you go to a 60, it will bring you down. So I don't understand, unless there's some rule that I'm missing, why it wouldn't just take you to any speed zone up or down that tree. That would make life very easy. And the driving experience much better. And it'll just allow you to sort of just know with confidence that regardless of where you're driving, it's going to pick up the signs and do the speed zone. So you don't risk a speeding fine or anything to that context. Yeah, so I'll need to find an exact place where that takes place. There are a few around town, and maybe we can test and see if that's the case. But I expect something at that level would be in a release note, because it is almost like a feature. I mean, it sounds almost silly to call it that, but it is a fundamental change, and they are likely to have to do programming, active development to achieve that, so then it would end up in the release notes. And I think once we get to version 12 of beta end-to-end, there's no doubt that stuff is just going to happen naturally. I don't see anybody in the States complaining about that with beta. It's certainly not present in those builds. So we know the car is capable of it. There's a small risk, I guess, that that it incorrectly detects a speed zone and it might accelerate you. That's why you're behind the wheel. That's why you're paying attention to just override if that ever took place. One interesting fact, something I noticed on the weekend when I was driving, I had a quick road trip on the weekend. There was a period of the road that had construction on it, and so they brought a 80 speed zone down to 40, and they were using sort of the temporary signs to do that. One of them on the left had fallen over, and so the car didn't read it properly. It didn't pick it up from the one on the right, and that meant that for the next however long, exiting that construction zone or roadworks, the speed zone returned to 80, but the car was basically set to do 40. So for the next however long, I need to manually push the accelerator to speed up. There's no capacity to say that. Now you can. Interesting. I think there's some differentiator between single and double lane roadways or something on this, but you definitely couldn't just increase the speed, at least on the last build. So again, more testing required. But imagine that I was doing 40, having to push the accelerator, speed it up and manually increase that cruise set. Interesting. Now, the reason this was such an issue, if it was a couple hundred meters, that would be fine. But there was not another speed sign for a ridiculous amount of time, like probably 20 minutes of driving. I didn't see another speed sign. And so, this is absolutely first world problem territory, but, my foot started to hurt because I don't regularly have to hold my foot on the accelerator, and then all of a sudden I did. Anyway, so we just did a single lane to double lane merge there. And this is just such a weird map item. We got new maps as well today, first 2024 map update. But you'll see that it's in the nav route, it's actually mapped to take this double right. It's like a right and then a left sort of thing. So it's not smooth, is my point. And they're the kinds of things that I really hope that they fix. Now there's a inverse to that up here where you go, this will split off to 2 in a second, which it does fine. It's the 2 into 1, and this does it so beautifully. It's so human-like through this section. I absolutely love it. It's something I like to show people because this is something where other cars and their ADAS systems would be, wait, we're slowing down. Oh, it's doing the route thing. So it wants to route me down a dirt road, which is a new feature that I don't need. I'm sure that's an efficient route, but it's a dirt road, so no thank you. So yeah, I like to show people this because the ADAS systems, other cars have some kind of level of lane keeping, but they get to a point where the lane ends like this, and they would freak the hell out and they would disengage. Whereas this just says, oh yeah, cool. Where's the obvious choice after the lane ends is you merge into the next lane and you keep on going. Only caveat is it should be auto indicating out of that. That's what a human would do, is indicate out of the lane once you switch to the next one. On a whole, that's one of my favorite pieces of road because I know that it does that. I don't have to pay attention. I know it's not going into the oncoming traffic lane, etc., etc. This does seem like it's slowing a little more. Let's see how far I can push this. Yeah, no. I mean, I didn't have the routing either, so that's part of that equation. Now, if I'm tricky, so you can't usually use Autopilot in here because there's no, white lanes to initiate it. You really only need one side of the road for that to take place. But on the other side of this roundabout, if you're very tricky and fast, you can enable it. And then we can test how it reacts. Ah, missed it. Okay, and now it wants to correct my steering. It is like very hit and miss. You have to time it perfectly, but I have been able to do it, and we might try it on the next one and see what happens. I just want to see if it will hang to the left or if it will try and center in this road. So, detect the lane. No, we didn't get any lane detection there at all. Okay. Interesting. But yeah, definitely this sort of section of road we're keen to have beta because beta will detect, hey, there's black stuff and you can drive in the black stuff. So yeah, so that is a quick lap around 2024.2.2.1 that came out today in the Model 3. If you've got any questions, let me know, leave them below and we'll try and get to them. Outside of that, see you on the next one, guys.